Yo! Red dot sights or reflex sights, like people, come in all different shapes and sizes, and it is my preferred optic of choice whenever I'm playing in hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. Basically, any VR game. I just don't like using iron sights in general. It's just not as easy to see. Having that more open sight picture with that quick to find red dot, it's just a lot more natural for your eye to just be able to easily get up on target. Lots of different red dots that you can use out in the open world. Specifically in game, there's several dozens of them. So I figured we'd do a quick video to kind of go through all the different red dots that I enjoy playing with and see what the game has to offer. When it comes to playing with red dots, when doing things like airsofting, or paintball with guns that you want to have a little bit more on the realistic side, has its own benefits, just like you would use a normal red dot in H3VR, like having that fast target acquisition and getting that red dot up on target quickly. You would normally use something like an elevated MRO, in which this is a T1 micro replica. It's not the real thing, because I'm not going to spend $500-600 on a red dot for a $200 airsoft gun. But this thing is as close as it gets. It's got a nice little riser mount, and it's got that dot, so that way I can stay on target without having to worry about that mask on my cheek weld, and I'll be able to see what I'm doing. Even on my other red dots in my other guns, such as my AK, which I use for those longer range outdoor maps to play on, I once again have a nice and tall sight picture, so that way my mask doesn't get in the way. Obviously, masks and butt stocks don't get in your way when you're playing hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. You can use as low of a profile red dot as you want. You can stack red dots. You can do whatever the hell you want. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to jump in VR, and we're going to see what the game has to offer in terms of the reflex sight category of optics. I'll see you in there. Now, before we jump into the video, I thought it would be a good idea to try to explain in layman's terms how a red dot sight works. Essentially, there's an LED inside the housing of the red dot that shines that red light onto a curved lens. That lens reflects the light backwards through the rear of the sight into your eye. So from your perspective behind the red dot, you see that red reticle, but anybody in front of you looking into the red dot does not see it. One of the benefits of a red dot sight over iron sights is that you can keep both eyes open, and you will have the perspective from one eye that is currently aiming down the red dot, and you will see that red dot projected directly in front of your vision. And since you have both eyes open, that kind of blurs the outline of that reticle's housing unit. So that allows you to mainly just see that red dot on what you are targeting and not much of anything else. So that's a really good way to get your targets quickly over iron sights with not as much aiming that you'd have to do. That's the layman's terms. Let's get back to the video.
Yo! So, I'm in game, and this is a row of every single red dot / reflex sight currently offered in hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. What you've probably seen me mainly use so far would be this smaller micro red dot. I use this since it's so low profile on a lot of pistols, as well as some assault rifles, and even some options with a scope where I'm just kind of canting it to the side as that additional sight picture. This is going to be the typical configuration that you will see me use. I should probably put a magazine in. This 416 here. So there is the very standard red dot that I have been using. You can see that red dot very clearly. It's very open, nothing obstructing it. This is probably still one of my favorites. They've added a lot of them, a couple new ones in the latest update, so I will be trying out a lot of these for the first time. So we're going to see if there's any that can beat this red dot, which I feel is the benchmark of the perfect red dot because it's so open. The sight picture is nice. There is nothing impeding my eyesight when I'm getting my target. On top of that, I really enjoy the Russian red dot. I think this is like the OSKP or something like that. This has a very similar effect. Super, super bright. Very, very easy to see what's going on. I could just get on target and throw rounds all day. These two red dots are awesome. Awesome, for sure. Alright, so this one is new. I haven't even seen this red dot yet, so I'm just going to probably put this right over... Yeah, right about there. This probably has a new reticle. Oh, so it's a circular type. Okay. Very boxy. Definitely has a lot more blockage around the eye here. Can't really see as much of your surroundings unless with VR you can kind of recreate that red dot effect by keeping both eyes open at the same time. That allows you to kind of make the shroud of the red dot kind of a little bit more transparent and easier to see past it and just only have the dot in your picture. But you can't see that. You can only see that housing because you're looking through my right eye. So I would say this is a cool red dot. The reticle's nice. I would only really use this in extreme CQB. Now, this is going to be closer to what I use with airsofting. This is the elevated MRO. Super clean, and it's really tall. I notice that I don't have to hold my hands as close up to my head, and it also has that groove on the inside, so I can marry my iron sights with this little notch down here in the middle. So if you have some lower profile iron sights that are kind of bulky, such as like the CZ Scorpion, you can have your red dot nice and tall over your iron sights and be able to use those iron sights if you feel the need to. So this is also, in my opinion, a top tier optic. So here's another one. This one is super tiny, just a tiny little square red dot. Let's take a look at this reticle. And this is actually very nice. It's just a very simple dot. It looks bulky when you look at it from the side, but when you're looking down, all you're getting is a very thin square. So I know that this one is a new addition, and I'm liking this red dot already. I can see this being a very nice match with some of the SMGs that you have to offer. Like, if you were to throw this on a UMP-45, I think this would work out really good. So I actually like this one. I'm going to give that a try in a future video for sure. This one is actually going to be very similar to the elevated MRO. This is going to be a red dot on a riser mount that also has that iron sight co-witnessing hole underneath the riser. And this one will also be a top contender for sure because there is practically nothing obscuring my vision. So again, magazine. This is also going to be a top contender. I'm actually really liking this red dot. Here is one of the bulkier of the boys. This one is just a solid square. I'm assuming this is going to be closer to how it works with the holographic sights, which we'll get to in a minute here. And this actually is not as bad once you're actually aiming. You just get a nice thick outline here with a nice bright red dot in the middle. I actually have zero issue with this red dot. That is not bad at all. I actually like that. Now this has already been in the game for sure. This one's just a very simple circle with the dot in the middle. Pretty familiar with this one already. Actually, I was wrong. The one that I'm talking about is this one. It's a little bit smaller. This one has a very interesting chevron sight. And this I would use this one on an SMG for extreme CQB, close quarters, or I would mount this on a shotgun that had some rails on the top, because I just have a little bit more of a hard time lining up like on a quick reaction where I'm going to be pointing that chevron. But one cool thing about it is that the closer you bring in, that chevron is going to stay the exact same size, but you can get a pretty good open picture with that red dot. But looking down it still takes up a lot of your vision. So this is, in my opinion, one of the lower tier red dots, and I'm not going to ever really pay attention to that one unless I happen to pull it out of a box and take and hold. It's not my first choice for sure. This is the one I was just talking about, actually. Got one in the chamber. And this is just a simple circular shroud with a dot in the middle. It's basically an MRO without the riser mount that you would see on the other one. Where is it? This guy. Come here. So pretty similar, similar form factor. Not as short thanks to that riser mount, but it's very simple. Just point and shoot. It's all right looking. It's not a very fancy looking red dot either. So on some rifles, I'm sure this is going to look nice, but those kind of circular ones where it just really takes up your vision, not my preference. A lot of people, when you mention red dot, this is the first design that they think of. This is a very generic red dot design that a lot of cheaper red dots will look like. One of my first red dots that I ever owned in real life, I forget what the brand name is called. I believe it's Barska, but it looks exactly like this. So this one is actually really interesting because it allows you to come up with your hand to this dial right here, click, and change to different reticles. So this one is very unoffensive, lets you pick the reticle that you choose. You just aim, and then there's not a whole lot up top that's blocking your vision, but this little nub down here can get a little bit on the annoying side. So if you want just a very simple red dot, I mean, in terms of aesthetics, it looks like a red dot. Not much else I can say about it. Not my preference. I prefer those lower profile, super clean ones. This is still one of my favorites. Now the EOTechs. The EOTech holographic sights are very interesting. The reticle is extremely open. Sorry about that, folks. My game crashed on me, just like it does every now and then. So I had to shut down and recreate the scene to my knowledge with the ones that I have yet to review. We have a couple of Russian ones coming up as well. So I believe we were last on the EOTech. The technology behind a holographic sight and a reflex sight is a little bit different with the way that it projects the dot and how it interacts with your eye. It's definitely a little bit more useful with those unique magnifier mounts that you would mount on, and it would allow you to magnify that reticle I think it's usually a 2 or 3 times magnifier, so that you can have a little bit more range with it. I personally don't like holographics a whole lot because they are very bulky. And then here is the larger and longer version of that EOTech, and you can just see it's just a thick boy on whatever gun you put it on. The 416 is already a pretty large and over-gassed AR platform, but that holographic sight, it's just big chungus. But in terms of having that double eyesight, having 2 eyes open, and having that open eye relief so that you can just look past the shroud of the dot sight, it's not that bad. But in terms of closing your eye, yeah, it's just blocking everything. It's just not that great in my opinion in terms of a gameplay perspective. From a military and in real life standpoint, holographic will have its reliability advantages over other red dots. It's a tested and proven reflex. In terms of gameplay, not my preference. We have another one. I believe this is called an SRS or something like that. This one is also a very simple circular shroud with a simple dot in the middle. This is kind of similar to the holographics and the other large enclosures. It just takes up a lot of your screen. Doesn't look as nice in my opinion. I believe this is an older fashioned red dot in terms of the technology, and this was also used by various militaries at one point or another, but I do not like this particular red dot. I would only use this if it happened to roll out of a box in Take and Hold. So there's that. Throw that in the trash. Now this one, I actually really like this one because it's so elevated, just like the other elevated MRO from earlier in the video. It's nice and open, very clean sight picture. There's only a little bit of kind of junk holding up that view from the side. And as you can see, it's actually this red dot inside this little shroud right here. It looks like the exact same red dot. It's just inside that outer shroud and that riser mount there. So in terms of that red dot, pretty nice. Oh, hello. Okay, well, sorry again, folks. The wife and kids got home from dance. It's actually a whole nother day now, so I'm just trying to resume our plan, trying to remember exactly where we had left off. So here is another red dot. This one I'm actually really liking. It's extremely open, very minimalistic. This would go great on a pistol or an SMG, or maybe top-mounted or side-mounted on a scope or multiple magnification optic. This one's very low profile. I think this would be another really good option. So I'm going to keep that one in mind. This one I've used in other videos because I really like the way that it looks. That nice little optic mounted on that clamp O-ring with that single Picatinny rail. Just very minimalistic. And yes, this does take up quite a lot of screen real estate, but I don't know. I ended up liking the way that this looks on a lot of rifles that I ended up just kind of ignoring it. Especially with these nice little white lines in the very center of the scope. It just kind of helps me naturally keep that optic in line of where the very front of my rifle is. So, also if I were to have some taller iron sights, this would be an awesome optic to co-witness your irons. So, just in general, I normally don't like those kind of high profile, heavily shrouded red dots, but I don't know, just for some reason, this one really resonates with me. Lastly, this is the Sustenance red dot, which is a make-believe optic with a recently added MP7 A1 that was added as part of a edition update with Half-Life 2. It was the MP7 that had the grenade launcher on it, and it has this red dot. And this one is another extremely low profile red dot that would be great for SMGs and pistols, but it has an extremely odd upside down T-shaped optic with a dot in the middle. And for some reason, the optic itself is just not very bright, so it's very difficult to exactly see where that center dot is, especially on red targets like here. It's just not that bright of an optic. This would be good for kind of dark rooms with close quarters on an SMG, but I just don't really like it that much. Now that we are, let's put that down. Now that we are moving on from Picatinny mounted, I have us an AK-74 for the purpose. Come on, in you go. Of showing off our two Russian-mounted red dots that are specific to the side mount that is on the AKs. So it would just slap on like that. In real life, if you were to use one of these mounts, you would actually slide it onto the mount, and then this little lever right here would clamp inwards. And these are really very convenient to just take off and put back on once you have it set. You'd want to put some Loctite on the screws. However, with how it is right now, you just kind of slap it on. You would need to usually screw this little screw through the bottom with a screwdriver just to get the right amount of tension to prevent it sliding everywhere. But once it's on with some Loctite, it's really on there. This one is not very open, but extremely low profile. Like, you can see that optic height over bore is very low for an AK. I can easily co-witness irons practically, and it's just really up on those iron sights. I'm going to do the AK thing. Ha! Boom. So this would look better on a very much more low profile AKS-74U style rifle. Very interesting looking. Now, this is the Russian Cobra sight that also has that proprietary AK mount. It would help if I were to... Come back here, you bastard. There we go. If you were to actually clamp it correctly. Yeah, it would help if you were to actually clamp this correctly, but I really wish they had a Picatinny version of this particular optic, because I would throw this on a lot of other ones because I'm a fan of Russian-style weapons. Is this red dot practical compared to the other ones? Absolutely not. Look how bulky the damn thing is. Like, the actual window for you to see through the optic is so tiny compared to the rest of the body of this thing. As soon as you go up to it, the ass of this red dot is in my eyeball, and I can barely look over it to see the actual red dot. In hindsight, this red dot is a little bit on the bad side. But for the sake of realism, if you were to put something on an AK or an AKM, this is the red dot to put on it. If we're talking about magnified optics, though, what you'd really want is one of the PSO scopes. Those are pretty great. While we're at it, in terms of what else you can do in this game with red dots, some of the really cool things, especially with one of the more recently added BR4 optics, is you can actually top mount with another Picatinny. For that sake, we're going to do a canted rail for later. And then where's that super low profile one? There you are. You can just throw this right on here like that. And then you got a zoomed optic. Oh, you would hope to load a magazine in, huh? Let's put this on semi-auto. And then all you need to do is just lower your rifle on your shoulder and you have a red dot. Of course, the height over the bore is a little bit high, so you kind of have to compensate. I think I have to aim a little bit down. Yeah, height over bore is a little bit wonky, but the whole point of having a red dot added on like this is so that you can be engaging somebody at a farther target and then immediately adjust your red dot for that close quarter stuff. Now, the other option for more things like rifle scopes, I'm just going to clip into this. I know it doesn't look practical. Actually, it doesn't look good at all, so I'm just going to get rid of this and put on an optic. Let's do the 1x24, because this one you can kind of use this like an LPVO. And yeah, we're going to have to just put it towards the front like that. You get a canted, and you just throw... You know, in hindsight, that's kind of in the way of the scope, but I don't think you'll notice. Yeah, see, that's fine. So while I'm fighting, if I really wanted to quickly get back on target with something close quarters, I can cant my rifle 45 degrees to the left. Now I have access to that red dot. And then I rotate back, then I'm back on target for long range. That's one of the main benefits, and if this were more of an actual recce rifle build that I would use in real life, that would probably be a little bit closer to what I'd be using. For the purpose of airsofting, since you have to deal with hop-up, that will cause upward spin on BBs. It's not practical, because as soon as I cant to the left, instead of flying straight like you'd want out of a hop-up, that's actually going to send it to the left up high, because that hop-up is spinning upwards of the trajectory of wherever that hop-up is pointing. So if I can't with a 45-degree angle, I'm kind of screwing myself over and sending BBs way over there. So I don't want that. So normally, you just want to go with... Oh, nice shot. You want to go with that top-mounted optic with maybe a red dot on top to just lower down into it. Or play indoors like I do in LA and don't use a magnified optic and just use a red dot like I do. Because that's all you really can use, is a very tall red dot on the rifle. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thought I'd just go a little bit more into the red dots that are offered. Yay! All the different red dots that this game has to offer. Maybe I'll do another video on magnified optics and kind of go through all those. But yeah, they have constant new updates to the game with more toys to play with, more red dots, more rifles. So I'll try and be a little bit more unique with what I'm slapping on my stuff in my videos, just so you guys can get a little bit more variety, because variety is the spice of life. But nonetheless, hope you guys liked that video. If you like what you saw, drop me a like. I know that I hate to do it, but I'm trying to get my channel to grow. The more that it grows, the more that other people can see and join our awesome community that we have so far. So, again, drop a like, sub if you have not already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.